Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Census Training 101 for the Questionnaire Assistance Centers. I am Dr. Audrey Garza. I work here for the Merced County Office of Education. I'm a coordinator for language arts and history. And so much of my work is training staff. And so Merced County has partnered with us for me to provide that training for them. And so as we've been working on the census in the last several months, we've been forming partnerships within our county as well as throughout the state to help make the census the most complete count that we could possibly have. And so you are part of that grassroots effort, and today my role is to provide the training for you for when you are working at the Questionnaire Assistance Centers, QACs, which will be housed at the libraries and a couple other locations here in the county. Welcome to all of you, and I'm glad that you're here for the training. I'm going to start off with a little bit of overview about the census, just to get us all to that same level of familiarity with the census. So I call it Census 101. You do have the handout with all of the slides. Those are your copies. Feel free to write on them, note them, whatever you need for yourself in case you want to go back and look at the information. I will be going pretty quickly, just again in the interest of time. So I did want to provide you with those copies so that you have that available. So just a little bit of background about what the census is, just to remind us or inform us or familiarize us with the fact that it is a count of the total population of our country, and it happens every 10 years. I've been in classes teaching about the census as well, and talking about the decennial is every 10 years, like a centennial is every 100 years. We use this data for a variety of reasons. The country, the state uses the data for a variety of reasons. The primary is to allocate funds from the federal government, which currently there are $675 billion that they allocate to the states based on our population. So it's in our best interest to make sure that we have a complete and accurate count for California so that we get our fair portion of that. Those funds are used for health care, education, employment opportunities, transportation, roads, and so on. So a variety of ways that it comes down to us in our state and then even into our counties. And so that's really important. It's also used to help determine where to build those new schools, roads, healthcare facilities, and other critical infrastructure like highways and public transit and things like that. It's also used, and this is probably the one that most adults are kind of listening to, for the state's representation in Congress. And if you have been listening to some of the buzz, California is kind of on the cusp right now that we could go up a member in Congress, which gives us another voice speaking for California at the federal government level, or we could go down and lose a seat. So we're kind of at the cusp, and we want to be sure that California is counted accurately and completely so that we have our fair representation at the federal level. And then again, I mentioned the funding because really we're all about the funding. That's what really makes things happen in our nation. And so to appropriate the federal funding for a variety of programs, school lunch programs, Medicare, Medi-Cal, variety of programs that are supported through federal funding. And again, it's based on that census count. One of the things that they've found in the course of the census is that children are historically undercounted in the census, possibly because of immigration, also family living arrangements, financial concerns, and language barriers. But children maybe an infant, a newborn, a toddler, they may not be counted for a variety of reasons. For example, a lot of information goes home to through the schools to families with their children who are school age. But if we're a new young family and we only have a toddler, we may not be getting some of that information that comes through the schools. And so then I may not be fully aware of the importance of my participation or even raising my awareness about the census and such. And so we do find that children are often underrepresented. Families that have concerns about immigration and citizenship may be hesitant to participate. And so part of our job through the questionnaire assistance centers is to inform people that the information is confidential. They're not asking questions about citizenship. It's asking who is present here on that date. And so helping to minimize some of the concerns about that. Also, various family living arrangements. Sometimes we have brother-in-law who's out of work, and so the family is staying with us for a while, and I might do my census, and I only count the people who officially rent my house, and forget to count my brother-in-law, my sister, and their 2 children. It is who is staying at that address during that time. And so sometimes we think it needs to be, the official or anything. It's who is staying there. Another example that I came across just today with a class is a family who has a farm. They may have farm hands who live on the farm, right? They have some housing. They would count all of the people that live on that property that are connected to that one address. So it's based on the address, not on each family unit. So just a few things like that. Language barriers are another concern. We have many languages represented in our nation, especially California. And so sometimes people don't feel like, I could do that, or I don't know that, or I don't speak English. And so we have tried to make ways that we could accommodate all of the languages in our county, especially, and in our state. And so we'll share a little bit more about those today. The impact of low or incomplete census data is that federal funding, it's misappropriated. If we're undercounted, if our children are undercounted, they're going to likely need some of those services such as schools, child care centers, doctors and hospitals, roads, transportation, school lunch program in the course of the next 10 years. But if they don't get counted, we will miss out on that funding that could benefit them. And so important that it addresses federal funding. And then, of course, the inaccurate representation of congressional districts. It really is a social justice issue. Every person matters. Every person counts. So we want to spread the word and make the information as accessible to everyone possible so that they are informed and they're more motivated and likely to participate. Real quickly, some of the things that are at stake. I know you can read, but I'll just make my way through it. 1, we could lose a congressional seat. 2, there is that $675 billion of funds that are allocated by the federal government each year, and we want California to receive its fair share. In 2015, California received an estimated $76 billion in federal funding tied to our population count. So if that's underrepresented, imagine how much more it could benefit our state, to benefit the millions and millions of people who live here. Due to the undercount in 2000, so I know that was 20 years ago, but in 2000, Los Angeles County missed out on an estimated $650 million in federal funding, and California lost $1.5 billion in funding for 8 programs, just based on undercounted numbers. So we want to get the word out and count everyone, because everyone matters. This is a really hard thing to see, difficult to see, but the red areas on this map over here are the hardest to count areas. Some of those factors that I mentioned, young children, language barriers, immigration concerns, family living situations, economic situations. The darker the red, the harder to count. And so Merced County overall is in the red, but much of Merced is in the hardest to count, the deepest of red. And so we are really trying to work together to spread the word and help people be more likely to participate. Basically, this is some of the steps that the federal government for the 2020 census takes to get through the process. So 1 is establishing where to count. 2 is motivating people to respond, and we're kind of there now. Then the actual population count will happen, and then the census data will be revealed. And then the information that comes from that and the steps that come from that are included, such as apportionment and congressional seats and things like that. This is an operational timeline on slide 7. I think I've made it through some of my slide 7, and it started in 2018, where we were trying, the federal government was starting to get ready with the key census activities that they're wanting to share and convey. We have now moved into, we're in February, March, where we're really doing those grassroots efforts of getting people informed and updated, and then pretty soon we'll be assisting them with the count, which is part of your job, and then we'll continue on. So this is just kind of the long span. It doesn't just happen in a couple months. It's been taking several years to get ready for it. This is a census like no other in that we have really been, I say we like I'm part of them, but they have, and now it's coming to us, really been trying to motivate people to respond and assure that the data is secure. A lot of people are concerned about confidentiality and cybersecurity and such. So they're doing micro-targeted advertising, and so we've really moved it down from federal government to state level to county, and then even organizations with our county are promoting the census, because you would most likely hear a message that comes to you from one of your neighborhood organizations or a civic group that you participate with. We're tailoring the contact strategy, which everyone will get their own specific postcard. We're partnering between organizations to maximize our efforts and support, just like I am joining with the county to provide this training for you. You will actually be doing your service in our county libraries, which is a nice central location, especially in all of our rural areas. So very targeted and building those partnerships. And we will be sending notices to encourage self-response for people to participate. We tried to make it easy. They've tried to make it easy for us to respond from any location at any time. So when each address receives that postcard with a unique code on it, we could scan it with our smartphone and do our survey, which is about 9 questions. We could go to the library and get some help with it on one of the devices there, which you'll have a cell phone for some people who want to, who need language assistance, and I've given you a list of numbers that they could call, and they could do it over the phone with that person right then and there. Or they could actually get a form, have it printed, and send it in. But we're really striving to make this a digital count so that it can happen in a shorter time and be as accurate as possible. We'll talk a little bit more about that postcard in just a bit. So, well, here we are. So on this slide, which is number 9, is an example of what the postcard might look like. It has that scannable QR code. Some of us are getting pretty hip and we know how to use that now. That scannable QR code, but if not, I could go to the web address, my.census.gov, and then I could enter my ID number. And so each address will have its own ID number. That is used a couple ways. We want it to be a complete count, but we also want it to be an accurate count. So once that code is used, it cannot be used again. So that's why we have that. And then even if I'm not techie and I heard that I could go to the library and get some help, I could take my postcard and then you would be able to help me. You could help me with the tablet by scanning the code and my questionnaire will pop up, or we could just click on the link that's on the tablet. It'll go straight to this website. I could enter my code from my card and go on from there. So a variety of ways that we can support them. Our goal is to make this a digital census. We're really working to support all of the language diversity in our state and make sure that we're providing access to everyone, regardless of language. And so we have several ways that we're doing that. Most of our materials are available in 13 different languages. We have even more coming available all the time, but we do have materials, live people to answer the phone who speak that language, and things like that to support the various language diversity in our state. Some of the local efforts here at the bottom that you can see is a local complete count committee, which there are several organizations in our county that are working together. These grassroots organizations to localize, so sometimes there are church groups, other civic groups, public entities such as the county that are providing information and support. And we're also working to hire locally. Just as you were hired to do this work, there have been others who have been hired by the U.S. Census Bureau to be an enumerator or other roles for the census, but local people to do the work locally. So this is kind of a timeline on slide 11 of the when things will happen. So middle of March, people will start receiving their postcards and an invitation to respond online. Later in March, they'll get a reminder letter. So as soon as you get your postcard, you can start and complete it. And then if you hadn't responded, you'll get another reminder at the very beginning of April that's connected to that code and that address. And then mid-April, another letter reminder or a paper questionnaire, and then a final postcard the end of April as a reminder. It will not be until after that timeline that you'll start seeing people go door to door. And the door-to-door is only necessary because maybe someone really is hesitant, they do not know how to use the technology or access it, or they may not plan to participate, but perhaps someone coming to their door, maybe they could clarify some of their concerns and make them more likely to participate. So will someone come knocking on your door? Only if you haven't responded in about 6 weeks. Some of the information that's requested, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go to the website unless at the end we have time, but this is a link and you have it on slide 12 to a sample census form so you could see the exact questions that it asks. Sometimes that's helpful to know so that you can address that with people. It's not your job to convince them, but if they need some clarification, it's good for you to know. And so some of the questions just briefly is whether that home is owned or rented, the gender of each person living or staying in the home, because maybe my grandmother is with me for 3 months. If she's with me during that time, she gets counted. the age of each person in your home, and that is necessary because if we find that a majority of the population is, say, 70 or older, then our infrastructure and such needs to plan for that, maybe more residential care, medical services and such. Or if we see that a majority are in the 0 to 5 range, we're going to need to anticipate child care and schools and such. So that's why the age is asked of them. The race of each person, just because we are always trying to be aware of the demographics and groups in our state so that we can provide for the needs and supports that they may have. And then whether they are Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish. And then the relationship, brother, cousin, friend, mother. That also helps with some of the demographics that they count. Okay, how are we doing?
Good.
Any questions on any of that information? Yes?
So I know you mentioned there would be a card for the code. If they don't receive that, will they have the option to respond electronically without the code?
Yes, and most likely it would be received, but if not, they could go to a website and follow through from there. They could also call, and calling the number, they can respond live over the phone.
Do they track it by address or is it by...
The code would be linked to the address. Yeah. Good question. All right. Now into our QAC training 101. That was kind of my teacherese background for us. So just a quick overall overview of what we'll be covering in the remaining portion of today. QAC fundamentals, engagement fundamentals, and then QAC visitor reporting. Those are the 3 sections that we're going to go through today. Fundamentals. During this section, we're going to talk about the role of the 2 principal census organizations, which is the USCB, which is the U.S. Census Bureau, and the California Complete Count Committee, which is the California office. Then we're also going to talk about the grassroots function of a QAC, the Questionnaire Assistance Center, of which you've been hired to staff and support. And the important role that you play to assist and motivate our community members to participate in the 2020 census. So our learning objectives for this section are that you would recognize the function of a QAC. Somebody called it quack the other day, but I'm like, well, it doesn't have a U in there technically, so a QAC. And then understand the roles and responsibilities that you have. So, do you work for the U.S. Census Bureau?
No.
Oh, wow, very clearly no. That is correct. You do not work for the U.S. Census Bureau. Are you an enumerator?
No.
No, you are not. Some people might ask you that. Some people may ask you questions as if you do or you are. And as a QAC staffer, you are not working for the U.S. Census Bureau and you are not an enumerator. You are a person providing assistance. All right, so the U.S. Census Bureau is the designated federal authority charged with conducting the census and other surveys of the American population. There are a variety of them, but we're focused today on the U.S. Census. So the Census Bureau is the group that's been given that authority to do that work. They ensure that everyone is counted once and only once and in the right place in the United States. It's a daunting task to count that many people over that many miles, right? So they need lots of us to work together to help them accomplish that. Some of the ways that the U.S. Census Bureau, not us, that they do their work is they hire temporary employees to be enumerators. Those are the ones who go door to door. They will only be needed for those families that have not responded in the time period that we're doing our work here locally. But their job is to make sure that that complete count happens over the course of this time. Some people wonder about group quarters and how that's addressed. So college dorms, unfortunately, prisons, jails, hospitals, shelters, things like that. So they do the group quarter enumeration. They do it. The hospital won't go online and do the census for all of them in one because they're all at one address. The U.S. Census Bureau will do that. They will go to those places for doing that. Also transitory locations, so RV parks and things like that, people that live in mobile housing, hotels or motels, even in marinas. Some people live on their boats at the dock. And then service-based locations such as shelters and soup kitchens and such. So the U.S. Census Bureau does theirs, those locations for multiple housing. Yes? Right. They are the ones who will be doing that canvassing as well. The U.S. Census Bureau will be the ones that do the counting for people who are transient. They're staying under the overpass or things like that. Mm-hmm. Good questions. Same question I had when I first started doing some of this work. Now we're talking about the California Complete Count Committee. That is the Census 2020 office that ensures that Californians get their fair share of federal resources and congressional representation by encouraging full participation of all Californians during Census 2020. So California Complete Count is kind of the California grassroots effort to make sure that we are all counted, and then we've staggered it down even into smaller areas, even so much as the county, so that we can ensure that complete count. So what the California Census Office does is they oversee and support the grassroots and culturally congruent efforts with community-based partners to reach the hardest to count populations in California that may be undercounted during the census and ensure California for all. And so they are working with all of us at all levels in various ways, no matter how small or how big our efforts, to reach as many people as possible, to educate, inspire, and then encourage them to be motivated to participate. So our role as a community partner, you with the group that you're working for, me with my work here at the County Office of Education, as well as Merced County, in our organizations, we're working together to support Census 2020 outreach efforts so that we can reach our hardest to count populations and ensure that all Californians are counted. Some of the work that community partners do is supporting our efforts through implementation of linguistically and culturally congruent strategies and messaging to educate, engage, and activate in our hardest to count populations. So they're providing lots of materials in a variety of languages, also geared towards specific groups. So we have some that are some messaging that's for community efforts and inspiration, some that are for families with young children, veterans, church groups, all different types of groups that we might be connected to. So they're supporting that by helping provide materials and information in a variety of languages so that we can, and with a variety of tones and specificity for those groups. So our role in the questionnaire assistance centers, QACs, is we are a location where community members can safely and conveniently get information about the census in their native language, where they could also complete the census on a device or phone, as well as interact with community-based organizations who are trusted messengers. So I'm working through the schools and districts because schools are considered trusted messengers. And so we're sending information through our schools. Child gets a flyer, they take it home to their parents as a public information. So different ways. So the QACs are local places where people can get assistance, clarification, and even do their census. Our QACs are scheduled for the most part to open March 23rd and to be opened, I think, to the end of April, I believe. So starting March 23rd, most of them will be open. I think there are just a couple variations based on construction or things like that. So this is your little job description right here. As a staff member of a QAC, you play a pivotal role in that you assist and motivate community members to participate in the 2020 census and help the California Complete Office efforts to amplify the outreach messaging to the hardest to count populations in our state. And so AMP is assist, motivate, and participate, which is on slide 27. So it actually took me a little while to see the amplify in there, that it was AMP, and I don't know how many times I've read over this, but assist, motivate, and participate. So some important things for you to do. Today you will receive a shirt. You're not required to wear the shirt, but it's nice if you have it and you're clearly identifiable. However, you are required to wear the badge, which you will receive prior to your first day. And so they will be giving you a badge that you are required to wear to identify you as the QAC staff person. As far as what you do, you need to say who you are. Be clear that you're not an employee of the Census Bureau, and identify yourself as a staff member of the QAC, okay? And you could say the group that's hired you, you could say I'm a staff person from ResCare or whatever group, hosting the QAC. So very clearly, I don't work for the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm here to provide assistance to you from ResCare for the census. We do want to remind people to be observant while you're on duty. We want our count to be complete and accurate. So this is just a little heads up for us that during our shift that we observe. And the things we should be looking for are if there's any suspicious activity. Maybe someone is hanging around while people are doing their surveys on their devices, kind of looking over their shoulder, or even talking to them while they're trying to do their survey. Just to be aware and observant, just in case that should happen. We don't want people to be influenced to report inaccurate information on their survey. We want them to report a true complete count for their address. So just one little reminder for us to be observant. Some examples of suspicious activities that we might see would be people hanging around other people who are doing their questionnaire. Also snapping pictures with their phones of people doing their questionnaire. Being disruptive to community members at the center, or tampering with the devices. You'll only have 2 devices that you have to manage, 2 tablets and 2 phones, I believe. So it's not like you have them all over the library that you have to worry about. So hopefully that won't be too much of a problem. But just a little heads up for us to be aware.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay, so what do we do if we see the behavior? Who do we alert? How do we go about getting them out of there?
Okay, very good question. And so the question is, if we do see suspicious activity or behavior, what do we do? You will have a little checklist in your binder at the center of who to call and who to notify. And so that will be provided for you, a direct contact of who to call, who to notify, and what your next step should be. We don't want you getting into an altercation with someone, but information is very important. Thank you for asking. And I'm not exactly sure how much this applies to you since you will be using tablets, but it does talk about verify that the screen lock has a password, that the shortcut to the 2020 census is available, and that the QAC device is labeled as a QAC device, not a library device. People may choose to complete their survey on a computer, a library computer, but if they come to you and want to use you have it available there as well. There will actually be a step-by-step guideline for you. So if you are the opening shift, step-by-step of what you need to do, where you need to get the materials, set them out, set it up for the day. And if you're at the closing shift, you will have a step-by-step direction of how to close it down, put it away securely. And it will be within the library setting or the setting of any other group where we're working at, but predominantly libraries. And so just kind of that setup and shutdown is our responsibility, not the libraries. But everything will be staying there. You don't have to transport it out, in and out. So privacy is important. People they question or are concerned about privacy, and so some tips to maintain that is to make sure that we're the only ones providing assistance. So if my brother comes to check on me, like, hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, I've had a lot of people come by today. And then someone comes, he shouldn't jump in and try to help them because we want to maintain confidentiality and privacy. So I have my shirt, I have my badge, I'll be the one to help. So thank you, Anthony, but I'll take care of it. I'm on duty, kind of thing like that. And then also using a lower confidential tone of voice when we're talking with them so that their information or their questions are not being advertised to people around in the library. So keeping that personal communication with them, kind of a lower tone, so that we're kind of maintaining their privacy. This is a lot of text on one slide, which is slide number 33. A lot of text on one slide. It's focused on the importance of protecting respondents' confidentiality. We should encourage community members to respond independently via the phone, online, or paper questionnaire option that best suits their needs. So we can't make the phone call for them and say, okay, how many people live in your house? Oh, he said 3. They need to do it. We hand it off to them in whatever language they're using, for them to then complete that over the phone. We can help get them onto the tablet device. If they have a question, we can help them, guide them, but we really want it to be them doing their survey. So some people, paper pencil may be best. So this is what that is saying, to keep that in mind. If a member of the public requests assistance in completing their form, please direct them to the response option that best suits their needs, whether it be online, by telephone, the paper pencil version, or a census taker will come to their house if they get to that point in time. There's nothing wrong with that. If someone comes to your house to do it, you're not in trouble. It's not a bad thing. If that's what you need, then just wait till they come. That's okay too. For example, if an individual is responding online and needs language assistance, please encourage them to respond through the phone response option instead of the online response option, because on the phone, they can call directly to someone who speaks their language, and they can go through it with them. They can tell that person their answers, who will record it for them. If they still request your assistance with online responses, you can provide this assistance, but please inform them that you're not a Census Bureau employee, and therefore their answers are not protected by the law for you, with you. Their response is only protected by the Census Bureau once their response is received. And so telling them how to do it, or okay, it's asking you how many people live in your house at this time, then let them do it. But we should not be entering it.
Right.
And then finally, if they still want this assistance following that explanation, you should not collect or retain response information outside of the questionnaire and should not guide responses for their questionnaire. They have to make their own decision about their response. So if you say, well, it says how many people are living at this address, and they're like, well, my grandma comes every other week, and should I? Well, you need to answer the answer that best meets your family at this point in time, or your address at this point in time. So hopefully that's helpful. It would probably be very rare, but just in case. Assist with those with specific language access needs with in-person language support, if you're able to. If you speak Spanish and you can help someone, wonderful. But we always have the telephone services available, and you'll have that list of phone numbers, which I'm giving you today for your information, but it will also be there in the materials that you're provided. We have 59 language guides provided by the Census Bureau, and California has a few others that we've added as well. Something else that you'll be doing as a QAC staff person is providing assistance with the phone support. And so you will have a couple cell phones. They're the old-fashioned flip phones, because all they have to do is dial a phone number, and then they'll be talking the whole time. They're not going to have to enter information besides that phone number. And so then they can do that questionnaire over the phone with the person right then and there. Also being aware of people with disabilities, so wheelchairs or other disabilities, vision, things like that. Being aware and providing reasonable accommodations if you're able to. If you're not, you might think about the language supports. You know what? Maybe the computer option isn't as useful for you. Do you want to try calling by phone? Or those other options? And then we do have a resource line, and there will probably be some guidance in your binder at the QAC Center with the materials that you have. We will have a couple tablets with online access, so they could do them directly on those tablets. Or if they have a library card and such, they could use the library computers as well. But we will be trying to assist them with the materials we have as well. Something else we should be doing is answering questions about the 2020 questionnaire and provide clarification as needed. So they need to make their own decision, but if it's a question about gender, so frankly, I'm really surprised that the federal government still has only male and female, since we have been making sure that we identify non-binary and other options. Unfortunately, the U.S. Census only asks male or female. And so,
because over the past decade, there's been great progress in the LGBT community.
yes. And so I am surprised that it is only male and female, but let's... So you would just clarify for them, those are the two options that are available, and you would select for your family, for the people that you're listing on your census survey.
Can that option not be left blank?
I'm not certain, but I'm tending to think no.
I have a suspicion people would have a problem with the responses.
Yeah, it is a very good question about whether gender could be left blank, and that there may be people who may lean toward that. I'm not certain how that works, especially on the digital version.
And what are gender statistics used for?
Off the top of my head, I do not know specifically.
Unless it relates to medical or something? That's kind of a strange question.
Yeah, I'm not really certain what they use it for in particular. I know a variety of reasons, but off the top of my head, I do not know. Thank you. Some things for us not to do is to not guide their responses on the questionnaire, and we do not collect the information for them. We do not input the information for them. We also do not collect information for them and say, oh, I'll enter it for you later. We're not permitted to do that. For example, we are not to gather information on paper and then later enter it ourselves. Like, oh, give me your postcard, I'll write it down and I'll do it. No. We do not do that. We also do not use the U.S. Census Bureau logo on our devices at the QAC because it's a California Complete Count initiative that we're doing. So it's the circle logo. So we've branded it that way. On your badge that you will be receiving, there are some quick tips, and you could also refer to that in a quick, just a minute, let me double check. You could use that as a reference for yourself of the do's and don'ts. Question?
What about people that have like multiple race?
I believe they enter it for each individual.
Okay.
So they could have more than one per person, and each person could be different.
Yeah.
Good question. So as you can see, the U.S. Census Bureau does its part to count everyone, and the California Complete Count 2020 office focuses on working with community partners to reach Californians in the hardest to count areas. And this is slide 43. Community partners are those trusted messengers that are hosting the QACs at community level to engage and motivate community members to participate in the census. And it is an interconnected partnership to ensure a complete, accurate count of all Californians. Some key takeaways for us to remember is that the U.S. Census Bureau conducts the census and makes sure everyone is counted once and only once in the United States. California Complete Office supports and coordinates grassroots efforts to support Census 2020, especially in the hardest to count communities. And then you, as QAC staffers, you engage community members by providing in-person and in-language assistance and motivation to participate, there's the AMP, in the 2020 census. Now we're going to talk about engagement fundamentals, so our next section, just to give you kind of some strategies and such for the work that you'll be doing. Here we're going to review the questions that will be on the online 2020 census questionnaire. We're going to review the in-language tools and resources that are available. And we're going to discuss ways that we can engage, assist, and motivate community members to participate. So our learning objectives for this section, what's the slide number? Slide 47 is to understand the questions on the 2020 census and to understand how to assist someone in completing the 2020 census questionnaire. We're going to have a short video.
The online questionnaire is available in English and 12 non-English languages. To select a language, click on the globe icon and select the name of the language, or select the name of the language at the bottom of any screen. This video will show a step-by-step demonstration. Keep watching. You will need to complete the 2020 census in one session. If you leave, you will have to start over. To begin, choose Start Questionnaire. First, enter your 12-digit census ID. If you do not have a census ID, select the link below the login button and answer some additional questions about your address. You will still be able to respond. Then, confirm that you are completing the 2020 Census questionnaire for the address shown. Select yes or no. If you will be staying at this address on April 1st, choose yes. Otherwise, choose no. The next button takes you forward, and the previous button takes you back. Do not use the forward or back buttons on your browser, or else you may need to start over. Next, enter your name and telephone number. Enter your full name. Sometimes a message may appear on the screen that asks you to check your response or enter additional information. Review what you entered before selecting the next button. Enter the number of people, including yourself, who will be living or staying at this address on April 1st, 2020. Click on the underlined blue links for help with the questions. Make sure that you count people where they usually live and sleep. If someone does not have a usual residence, count them where they will be staying on April 1st. Include babies and children of all ages, close or extended family members, people who are not related to you, and people staying here without a permanent place to live. Do not include anyone who lives away from this address most of the year, such as college students, armed forces personnel, people in a nursing home, mental hospital, jail, prison, detention center, etc., or people visiting who usually live and sleep somewhere else. These people will be counted in other ways. Then, list the name of each person living or staying at this address. To add more people, select the button labeled Add Another Person. We do not want to miss any people staying at this address on April 1st. If you forgot to include anyone who stays here, choose Yes and enter those names. Otherwise, choose No. Now you're ready for the next two questions about the home at this address. On April 1st, will the house, apartment, or mobile home at this address be owned by you or someone in this household with a mortgage or loan, including home equity loans, owned by you or someone in this household free and clear without a mortgage or loan, rented, or occupied without payment of rent? Then, select the names of the owners or renters of this house, apartment, or mobile home. Next, we ask some questions about each person you listed earlier. First, we ask if the person is male or female. We also ask you to enter the month, day, and year this person was born. Make sure that the age that appears is correct as of April 1st, 2020. Next, we ask about Hispanic origin and race. Please answer both this and the next question. Select whether this person is not of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, Mexican, Mexican-American, or Chicano, Puerto Rican, Cuban, or another Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. If you selected the last response, enter more details in the box below. Next, we ask about race. Select one or more checkboxes: white, black or African American, American Indian or Alaska Native, Chinese, Filipino, Asian Indian, Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese, other Asian, Native Hawaiian, Samoan, Chamorro, other Pacific Islander, or some other race. Enter detailed origins in the boxes that look like this. Additional people will also see this question: how is this person related to the reference person? Select opposite sex husband, wife, or spouse, opposite sex unmarried partner, same sex husband, wife, or spouse, same sex unmarried partner, biological son or daughter, adopted son or daughter, stepson or stepdaughter, brother or sister, father or mother, grandchild, parent-in-law, son-in-law or daughter-in-law, other relative, roommate or housemate, foster child, or other non-relative. We're almost finished. Some people live or stay in more than one place, and we need to make sure everyone is only counted once. Select the name of anyone who usually lives or stays somewhere else. Otherwise, choose none of the above. If a person does usually live or stay somewhere else, select the reason why from the following: to be with a parent, grandparent, or other person, to attend college, for a military assignment, to be closer to a job or business, in a nursing home or group home, in a jail or prison, at a seasonal or second residence, or for another reason. Great job! You are now ready to send your responses. Select Submit Questionnaire to complete the 2020 census. You will see a confirmation page with your address and today's date. That's it. You have completed the 2020 census online. Thank you. You may now close the web browser.
I'm not really sure why they might need that code. Maybe if an enumerator came to their house and said, "Oh, you haven't completed the census, sir. I'm here to help you do that." And if he already had, "Oh, no, I already did it. In fact, I have that card somewhere." So if I understood correctly, at the QACs, you will have cards, kind of like the little sticker, "I voted" stickers, a little card that they could write their confirmation code on if they so desire, or they could even write it on their postcard that they received if they so desire. They will have some of those available in one way, shape, or form for you at the QAC that you could give to the people who participate right then and there. All right, I know that was like a zoom, quick version of the survey and such. Any questions on that? Trucking along. Frequently asked questions. Let's see what everybody else asked. Maybe we didn't think of. So some of the questions that they have, and I'm going to look at my script to make sure I answer them all correctly, is, can you help me fill out the census questionnaire? We already know the answer to that. No. Do I have to complete the online form? No. They don't have to complete the online form. There are other options. Remember, the phone call version, the paper version, or wait till they come to their house. So there are some options. No, you're not required, but do you have any questions that I could answer for you that'll help you? And so you can. Do you work for the United States Census Bureau? No. Good job. What resources are available to help me answer the census questionnaire? Are there other in-language resources available? So what resources are there? The phone call, they could call in, they could do it online, there are language guides, and then other supports for people that might need them. And who should be counted in the census?
Everyone.
Everyone that lives at that address on April 1st. And you know, sometimes I say stays at that address, because that may not be their permanent, but they are staying with you. You know, we have different living situations. Some other frequently asked questions you should know are the important dates for the census. So it'll be starting in mid-March. Each household will receive a postcard. What one are we on? We're on 62, slide 62. So starting in mid-March, they'll get a postcard informing them of their options for filling out the census questionnaire, which includes online, by phone, or written form. If they do not fill it out, they will be contacted during the non-response follow-up period, which is May and June. So if they're one of those people, they're like, I do not know how to do this. Can someone just come and do it? Yep, they'll come to your house in May or June to get it. You know, if they really feel uncomfortable. And if there's a partially completed questionnaire that was submitted, enumerators may contact that household to finish it up. I'm not sure if that's possible to be partially, if they did it online, but maybe a paper one that they left some questions off or something. Why should we complete the census is a good question, and some people may ask you that. It'll help decide how billions of dollars are going to reach our families. Those answers on the census help determine funding for dozens of programs that provide essential resources here in California. The census data determines funding allocation for schools, child care programs, road maintenance projects, and social assistance programs. So just in that paragraph of what that funding is used for, that pretty much touches all of us in some way, shape, or form. And we may be able to implement or enhance some programs. There are more details there, but even that is just enough to probably convince people. What's the difference between the United States Census Bureau Partnership Specialist and an enumerator? So they both work for the Census Bureau, but an enumerator's job is to conduct the research and count the population by canvassing door to door. A partner specialist doesn't count the community members or the population. They connect community partners to tools and resources to help with the count. And then that question, will the Census Bureau come to my house, right? Are they going to come knocking at my door? It's possible, but we don't want people to be afraid or alarmed. That's just another way to participate if these other options are not comfortable for them. And we do have people who are hesitant with people just knocking on their doors or things like that. So our job is just to inform them as much as we can with the information that we know, and then they make their decision based on that. If someone says, I'm not sure if somebody already did it for our house, should I still complete it? And the answer is yes. It's okay to complete the form even if you think someone else might have already done it. Please complete the 2020 census and include everyone living or staying in that household, even if they think others may have already responded. The United States Census Bureau does have processes in place to where they can, if there's a double count, they can verify it to resolve any duplication. So maybe the mom and dad are both just working, 15 hours a day. They're crossing like ships in the night. And it's like, I've been hearing a lot on the news. I don't know if he did it, but I have 5 minutes right now. I'm going to go ahead and do it real quick. It's okay. And they have some ways to account for those duplications. And a reminder to include everyone in your household, babies, foster care, children, non-relatives, other family members, and such, as the video pointed out. If the website is down, how do I complete by form? So if if the website's down, they might try the phone. A quicker way than trying to do a paper version. But there is a paper version option, but maybe offer them the phone call version because they could still do it right away. And then what resources are available to help me answer the questionnaire? There is a glossary on the website where they can search up certain terms. On the online version, there is a blue underline help button that would give a little description for any things to help people out when they're in the midst of their survey. So if someone says, I lost my questionnaire or I never received one in the mail, how do I get a replacement? They could still complete it online, going to the website, or by phone call. All they have to do is give their address instead of their code, and they'll connect them to the right survey. And if they say, I don't understand some of the terms used in the questionnaire, where can I get help to understand these terms? Then they can call the 844 number for support, use the glossary, or online, the little help links. It says, my neighbor received their census letter invitation, but I didn't get one. What should I do? Assure them it's okay. They are staggering their mailing so that not everyone gets their letter at the same time. So they're starting to mail out March 12th through the 20th, they will be mailing. So by the time they drop it in the mail and it gets to us, right? So it's like a 10-day window. So they are staggering it. And here's some information, like if you don't get it, you'll get a reminder letter. There's a whole timeline of how you could get up to 4 different mailings. The sooner you respond, the less mail they have to send and the less mail you have to receive. So, but starting March 12th is when they'll start mailing those out. So it is likely that you'll get yours and your neighbor hasn't received theirs yet. Is my information safe and confidential? Is it? Yes, it is. I'm hearing rumors about Census 2020. How can I know what's true or false? So there is a link. They actually have an official rumors page for the U.S. Census Bureau, so that you can kind of dispel some of those myths and rumors. And people thrive on fear, and so it spreads much faster than anything. So yeah, they actually have a web page you could go visit. Some more frequently asked questions. Is my information protected? I'm concerned about the government having my information. What should I do? And then here's some information. The Census Bureau is required by law to protect any personal information that it collects and keep it confidential. Title III of the United States Code is also binding there. They have their U.S. Census Bureau employees are sworn to protect confidentiality. Every person with access to data is sworn for life to protect personal information and understand that the penalties for violating this law are applicable for a lifetime, so they're never exempt. And then violating confidentiality or sharing the information other than for statistical purposes is a federal crime. I know that's a lot of lingo, but we really want to assure people that it's to get an accurate count. How is information collected by the census? So the U.S. Census Bureau uses responses to produce statistics. Private information, of course, may not be published when it's collected. Answers cannot be used for law enforcement purposes, and personal information cannot be used against people who complete the survey. Does the 2020 census include a question about citizenship?
No.
And that is probably the biggest question and concern, especially in California. It will not include a question. We just went through it on the video, so you could go through that and feel very confident if people ask you. There's a little more detail there, but you all seemed pretty confident knowing that the answer was no. They will not ask about citizenship. What should Californians be aware of when filling out the census? What slide number are we on? 73? It is critical to be cautious of any request that seems suspicious. The United States Census Bureau will never ask for payment for filling out the questionnaire. They will never ask Social Security information or financial information. We do have to be careful because some people are using this as an opportunity to try to get that information. And so we are now good citizens. We've learned a lot about the census. We can tell our friends, pals, and neighbors, like, hey, nobody should be coming to our door, number one, until like what, May? Right? May and June. And of course, never should they ask for any money or Social Security or financial information. So we do want to be aware because some people try to capitalize and scam on that. So some key takeaways about engagement, getting our community engaged in the census. The 2020 questionnaire is available online, over the phone, and by paper. And if none of those work for you, just wait till the person comes to your door. It is available, the United States Census Bureau online and call center has many languages available. The questionnaire is available in 13 non-English languages via online and call center support. So those 13 languages online or over the phone. And then we have the language guides in 59 other languages. We have many resources available for people with disabilities, such as for deaf and hard of hearing, visually impaired, and even Braille. So large print or Braille. And then the confirmation code template is an option for community members to record and save their confirmation code. It's not a requirement, but it is an option that they could take away, or if I was doing it on my phone, I'd do a screenshot, right? that they could have that if they would like for their reference. Oh, I thought that was a hand. And then regarding the frequently asked questions, it's important to review those. I know I hurried. I'm just trying to be aware of your time and such. Hopefully it was comprehensible for you, but those are there for your reference. And of course, you could go to the websites as well and get some of that information. One last section. Are we ready for it?
Yes.
Yes. So QAC visitor reporting. So we, the California Complete Count has invested in hiring, disseminating money in the different ways with all of us partners to hire you to, and we're using it in our county to staff these QACs. And we are grateful for you being available and willing to do this work. So we want to track how many people come and take advantage of this service because we'd like to know, is it working? Is it helping? Did it help California get that complete count? So in this section, we're going to review how to use and complete the visitor interaction form and to report the interactions that staff and volunteers may have with community members visiting your QAC when you're working on site. So basically, we want to describe and report visitor interactions that occur at the QAC when you're there. This information helps to track the number and the types of visitors interactions that you experience while working. So we can track the type of support that people are needing. That gives us information for trends and planning for even the next, believe it or not, census in 10 years. And then it aids rapid deployment efforts to ensure that the 2020 outreach is meeting the needs of our hardest to count communities. So we're tracking how many people we're helping. Some days it may be 2 in a shift, other days it may be 22, I don't know. So we'll see, right? That's what we want to track and learn. And we are happy to invest this because every additional person that we're counting benefits our state. So you have a sample visitor interaction form in one of the attachments. If you would pull that out, it looks something like this. This one here, something like this. And on your, let's go over your form first. So it has the location. So if you're at a library, you would put Los Banos Library, the date of the shift that you're working. And then it's just visitor number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're not writing their names or information. You're going to note what language they needed assistance with. So if I came up to you and I'm speaking in Spanish, Español, and you gave me the phone, showed me to dial that number for Spanish, so you could write Spanish there, and then you mark off what you did. And it would be all that apply. So maybe you gave me a little flyer in Spanish that explained about the census, so you could mark that one, printed material. You would mark if I used the computer or the phone and I went ahead and completed it right then and there. You would mark if we contacted United States Census Bureau to request a paper form or a home visit. And then this would be your name. We will not take the public community member's name. So your name of who helped them. And so that's where you would mark that. So each day, each shift, you would keep track of that. And then that will get input at the end of the week as well. And then this form here is what's up there. This one here is another version. Merced told me they wanted to use both, so I'm sure you're going to receive more detailed clarification about that. The one I just reviewed with you, the sideways page, is kind of easier to understand, but this one is more of a tally sheet. And so the organization, so it would be QA, Los Banos Library, and then you could put the location information, your name, and then the date that you're doing it for. Then your total number of visitors. Oh, so you'll keep this, and then your, sorry, Stephanie. So this page you'll keep all during your shift, and then at the end it looks like you'll do this one, because this is your totals. So the total number of people that you provided information for, the people who did this survey on a tablet, the people who did it by phone, the total number of people. So that's your tallying page, and then this is your totals page. And then the languages represented. And so they do have a tip to use the back of the form to kind of tally, but we're actually keeping it here on this form, so that wouldn't be necessary, but that's there, where you could total the number of people reached in that language. And then there's a section of what went well, what could be improved, and any other notes that you have. So if you're like, you know, I had a line out the door, we really need more devices, or something like that, or anything of what went well, what could be improved. This is information that the coordinators will be reviewing so that they can help every day make it a better program for you and for the community. So we're going to be using the key takeaway is we're using a shift form to keep track of every interaction, and then we will total that information for this reporting form at the end of the day or shift or week. So then we can track, describe, and then report those interactions so we can continuously improve. I think that's okay. Any final questions that you have based on what we've done so far today? So the question is, they did their survey on March 28th and the baby arrived on April 1st. Can they update it? I want to say yes. I'm not exactly sure how. So the United States Census Bureau webpage could probably help us, or we could give them a call. But I do remember the one part about what if someone in my house already did it and I'm not really sure, so I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Remember about the duplication? So then maybe the more accurate one, if I go ahead and do it again, I can do the more accurate one, and if they need to call and clarify, we could explain, yeah, our baby was born, yay. So that might be a way to do it. But that's just off the top of my head, not because I'm a U.S. since I don't work for them, so I'm not positive. Yes, and there will be at each center kind of a kit or a box that has all of the materials for the QAC, which would include the cell phones, the devices, which I hope they're thinking about charging those each night. Cell phones, devices, probably a binder with frequently asked questions, directions. Any of the forms that you have to fill out will be in there, the little response cards, and probably some handouts, like informational handouts in a few languages. So you can be kind of self-contained, everything you need in a box for the Question Assistance Center. Each library setup is slightly different, and so that will be specific to the library or the location where you're working as to where you're setting up and such. But once you get into your routine, because you'll pretty much be assigned to a specific location, you'll get into your routine and become very familiar with that. So that is all I have for today. Thank you.